At 7:58 in the morning, 2 minutes before my shift officially started, I watched my career go up in flames. The email from HR was short, cold, and to the point. Your access has been revoked pending investigation. I hadn't leaked anything. But someone wanted me to take the fall. I stared at the screen for a long moment. The coffee in my hand went cold. My cubicle, with its neat stacks of reports and the small succulent I'd kept alive for 5 years, suddenly felt like a stranger's space. 5 years at Nexatech Solutions. 5 years of meticulous work, of loyalty, of never missing a deadline. And this is what I got. I didn't panic. That's not who I am. I read the email again, slowly, the way I read every dataset before making a conclusion. Revoked pending investigation. Pending what exactly? No details, no name, just that cold, sterile sentence. Then his voice came from behind me. Maya. Meeting room 3, now. I turned. Daniel Brooks stood there in his tailored gray suit, his smile perfectly in place. The manager of data analytics. My boss, the man who had praised my work in last month's review, who said I was the backbone of the team. That smile didn't reach his eyes. The meeting room had floor-to-ceiling glass walls. Everyone on the floor could see in. I knew that. Daniel knew that too. He waited until I sat down. Then he closed the door and stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, before turning to face the entire team through the glass. He projected his voice. I'm sorry to announce that we have a serious situation. He paused for effect. Client data was leaked. Sensitive data. From our largest account, a murmur rippled through the floor, heads turned. I saw a few of my colleagues glance at my cubicle, then back at him. The breach occurred on Friday night. The access was traced back to, he looked at me. Maya's credentials. My heart didn't drop. It went still. I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me. That's not possible, I said. My voice came out flat even. I wasn't in the office on Friday night. Daniel sighed, the kind of sigh that said, I wish it weren't true, but what can I do? The logs don't lie, Maya. I know what the logs say, I said. I also know they can be misread. Let me see the audit trail. He shook his head almost sadly. That's not how this works. HR has initiated an investigation. You're suspended, pending review. Full pay for now. Daniel, I've been here 5 years. 5 years of clean audits. I trained half this team. I know. He lowered his voice, a performance of loyalty and regret. Which is why this hurts so much, Maya. I defended you. I pushed back, but the evidence is what it is. I looked past him, through the glass. Sarah, my closest colleague, was staring at me with wide eyes. She didn't look away. She didn't believe him. I saw that in her face, but he was already moving. He walked out of the meeting room without another word, picked up his phone, started talking to someone else like I wasn't there. A security guard appeared at the door. Ma'am, I need to escort you out. I stood up, straightened my blouse, glanced at my cubicle one last time, at the keyboard I hadn't touched since Friday afternoon, at the reports I'd finished exactly on time. Can I get my personal belongings? They'll be collected and sent to you, the guard said. He didn't meet my eyes. If this story moves you, please hit subscribe to Revenger. The stories you hear here are real, and yours could be next. I walked out of the building at 9:30 in the morning. The sun was warm. The sky was clear. Everything looked exactly the same as it had yesterday when I was a respected senior analyst. Nothing had changed on that street. Everything had changed in my life. I thought about the email again. Your access has been revoked pending investigation. 7:58 in the morning. 2 minutes early. As if whoever sent it didn't even care to get the time right. As I walked out of the building, I knew one thing. I was going to find out who really did this, and they were going to regret it. The apartment was too quiet. I'd lived there for 4 years, and I'd never noticed how the refrigerator hummed or how the hallway carpet muffled every footstep. That Monday afternoon, after being escorted out of Nexitech at 9:30 in the morning, I noticed everything. I sat on my couch, still in the clothes I'd worn to work. Jeans and a blouse, professional, appropriate. It felt like a costume now. The email from HR was still open on my laptop. March 15th, 7:58 in the morning. 2 minutes before my shift, I'd read it so many times that I'd memorized the wording. Your access has been revoked pending investigation. No name. No signature, just a cold corporate knife. I closed the laptop, opened it again. There was nothing else to do. By 5 o'clock, I was pacing. The investigation was happening somewhere without me. People were talking about me in rooms I couldn't enter. Daniel was probably leading the charge, telling everyone how disappointed he was. How he'd trusted me, how I'd let the team down. At 6, I called Sarah. She answered on the second ring. Maya, oh my God, are you okay? I'm fine. I need you to tell me what's happening now. She lowered her voice. I could hear the office hum in the background. The faint clack of keyboards. They're doing a full security audit. Daniel's in meetings all day. He told the team that the client data was compromised and that the source was someone with senior access. That's me. That's what he implied, but nobody believes it. No one who knows you believes it. I closed my eyes. Thank you. Maya, what are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not sitting here waiting for them to decide my fate. I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. Then I called Rachel. Rachel Nguyen was the IT security specialist who sat 3 cubicles from me. We weren't close, not the way Sarah and I were, but we had a history. 2 years ago, I'd caught a data formatting error in her reporting system before it went to the client. She never forgot that. She picked up on the 4th ring. Maya, I was wondering when you'd call. I need a favor. Anything. The data breach, the one they're blaming me for. I need to see the access logs. Silence. 4 seconds of it. Maya, you know I can't do that. That's... She stopped. I heard her exhale. That's against every policy we have. I didn't leak anything, Rachel. You know me. The access logs will prove it. Another pause. The breach happened Friday night. Something like 11 p.m. I was home. I have a streaming history and a refrigerator full of leftovers to prove it. She laughed, a small, nervous laugh. I need to look at it from a different angle, I said. Just tell me if my credentials were used. That's still... She stopped again. The keyboard hissed in the background. I can't access it from here. There's a security layer that flags anything outside the company network. But if I remote into my workstation from home, I can mirror the logs without leaving a literal footprint. It's a gray area. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. You're not asking me to do anything legal either. Silence. When do you need it? She asked. Yesterday. I'll see what I can do. Give me until tomorrow afternoon. I spent the night drafting questions. Who has senior access? Who was in the office Friday night? Who benefited from making me look guilty? The answers came early. Tuesday morning at 10, Rachel texted me a link. A shared folder with a single file inside. Encrypted. I opened it at 2 in the afternoon, the exact time she'd promised. My hands were steady. That surprised me. The access logs were a spreadsheet, thousands of rows. Timestamps, user IDs, IP addresses, file paths. My eyes went straight to the breach window. Friday, March 13th, 11:06 p.m. My user ID didn't appear. Not once, not a single click, not a single file view. My credentials were dead that night, inactive. Asleep. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Then I scrolled further, and there it was. A row at 11:12 p.m. The client folder. The one with the sensitive data, accessed by user ID dbrooks42. Daniel Brooks, our manager. The man who had announced my suspension in a room full of my colleagues. The man who had called me the backbone of the team just 6 months earlier. I read that row 5 times. D. Brooks42, 11:12 p.m. Friday night, I saved the file, closed my laptop, and sat in the dark for a long time. Why would Daniel's credentials be used? I had to dig deeper. The next morning, I couldn't stop staring at my phone. The access logs were saved on my laptop, but they felt hollow without more context. I needed to know why Daniel did it. I needed proof that went deeper than a single login row. My apartment had never felt so quiet. I paced from the kitchen to the living room, past the succulent on my windowsill that I'd kept alive for 5 years. That stupid plant was the only thing in my life that hadn't been ripped away from me. At 11 o'clock, my phone buzzed. Sarah's name lit up the screen. "Maya, I'm sending you something," she said, her voice low and fast. "Don't ask how I got it. Just look." I heard her typing, then a soft chime. "Check your personal email," she said. "It's not on the company server. You didn't get this from me." The line went dead before I could thank her. I opened my laptop and clicked the email. 3 attachments. I opened the first one, and my stomach dropped. Internal company emails, threads between Daniel and someone named Marcus Webb. The domain on Marcus's address ended in Computex Solutions, a direct competitor in Dallas. They had been chummy for months, using phrases like "our shared interest" and "mutual benefit." One email stood out. Dated March 10th, Daniel wrote, "I can get you the Vertex file by Friday. The timing works. You'll have the full data set." I read it 3 times. My hands were steady. The Vertex file was the sensitive client data that had gone missing. The data that I was accused of leaking. The second attachment was a spreadsheet. Bank transactions, Daniel's personal checking account. I didn't ask Sarah how she found it. I was too focused on the numbers. March 14th, a Saturday, a single wire transfer for $250,000 deposited into Daniel's account from an entity named Webb Holdings. $250,000. That was the price of my career. I sat back and stared at the ceiling. The silence in my apartment wasn't sad anymore. It was focused. I was building something. A case. A weapon. Then I opened the third attachment and my breath caught. It was a folder structure from the project files. But the names at the top weren't mine anymore. My work, my analysis models, my dashboards, they had been moved into folders under Daniel's name. The timestamps on the files showed the changes happened over the last 3 weeks, late at night, one file at a time. He wasn't just planting evidence against me. He was erasing me entirely. My contributions were being transferred to his account, line by line, model by model. Sarah had flagged it in her note. "He's taken credit for 6 of your projects going back to January. All of the board presentation content belongs to you." I felt cold, not angry, cold. I thought about my last performance review. Daniel had smiled across his desk and called me the backbone of the team. He told me I was on track for a promotion. I trusted him. I trained half of that department. Now I knew what he meant by backbone. He meant something he could break. I spent the rest of that afternoon downloading everything. I saved the emails to a folder named Tax Records so it wouldn't look suspicious. I printed the bank statement and hid it in a cookbook on my shelf. I took screenshots of the project files with timestamps clearly visible. Maya's name. Daniel's possession. At 3 o'clock, I called Sarah back. "I saw everything," I said. "Do you have enough?" she asked. I looked at my laptop, the access logs, the emails, the financial trail, the project files. "I have enough to prove my innocence," I said. "But I want more. I want to catch him in the act." There was a pause. The phone call came Thursday afternoon, Daniel's name on my screen. I almost didn't answer. "Maya," he said, his voice smooth as ever. "We need to talk, off the record." I let the silence stretch. "Where?" "The coffee place on Congress, 5 o'clock. The same place we'd had our last one-on-one. The same place he'd told me I was on track for a promotion. I said yes before I could think about whether it was a trap. I got there early, 4:47. I ordered a black coffee and took the corner booth. Glass walls, like the meeting room at work. I figured if he wanted to ambush me, I wanted witnesses. He walked in at 5 o'clock on the dot. Navy suit, pressed shirt, smile that didn't reach his eyes. He slid into the booth across from me and put his phone face down on the table. "Thank you for coming," he said. "You said off the record." "It is." He leaned back. "Look, Maya, this whole situation got out of hand. I know you're frustrated. I know it looks bad. But I can make it go away." I didn't blink. "Go away." "I can talk to HR. Get the investigation closed. No permanent mark on your record. You come back, we reset, and everyone moves on." I took a sip of my coffee. Slow, deliberate. "And what do you get out of it?" He smiled. "I get my best analyst back." For a moment, I actually considered it a clean return. No fuss, my job back. Sarah and Rachel would support me. I could rebuild. But then I saw the way his fingers tapped the table, 3 quick beats. Nervous, confident people don't tap. "Daniel," I said, setting the cup down. "I saw the logs." His smile flickered, just for a second, then it was back. "What logs?" "The access logs, from Friday night." I kept my voice level, almost bored. "My user ID wasn't used. Yours was. dbrooks42. 11:12 p.m. He laughed, a short bark of a laugh that didn't match his eyes. "You must be mistaken. Must be a glitch." "There's no glitch, Daniel. We both know what happened." He shifted in his chair. "Even if you're right, who's going to believe you?" "Sarah believes me." "Sarah's a junior analyst with nothing to gain and everything to lose." He shook his head. "You have no proof, not enough anyway. You're suspended." "I'm still sitting at my desk. I'm still your manager." That word landed, manager, like a brand on my forehead. "I'm saying this as a friend," he said, softening his tone. "Let this go. Write a letter of resignation. I'll make sure you get a solid reference. By summer, you'll be somewhere better. We both know the market is hot for data analysts." I let his words sit. Then I took out my phone and placed it on the table, screen up. "I'm not resigning, Daniel." He glanced at the phone, then back at me. "Then you're going to lose everything." "I'm already losing everything." I leaned forward. "The difference is, I know why." He studied me. I studied him. For a long, quiet moment, neither of us moved. Then Daniel did something unexpected. He exhaled, and his shoulders relaxed. "You're right," he said. I froze. "You want the truth? Fine, I leaked the file. He said it like he was ordering a sandwich. But I did it for the company. The client was going to leave anyway. I found them a better partner, a merger. It was going to mean millions for Nexitech. You got paid $250,000 for that merger. His eyes sharpened. You can't prove that. I've seen the wire transfer. Webb Holdings. Saturday, March 14th, $250,000. He was quiet for 3 whole seconds. I counted them. I needed someone to take the fall, he said finally. You were the obvious choice. You'd had access to the file. You were too loyal to push back, and honestly, Maya, he tilted his head. You made it easy. You never protected yourself. You thought your work would protect you. He picked up his phone and stood. You should really think about that resignation, he said. Tomorrow I'm presenting the quarterly report to the board. Your work is part of it. He smiled again. It's been in my project files anyway. The board gets to see my numbers, my projections, my analysis. 6 of my projects moved under his name. Weeks of erasing me. It was never your work, he said. Not on paper. He was halfway to the door when I called out. Neil. He turned. I have copies. He tilted his head. Of what? I just smiled. I said nothing else. He waited a beat. Then he laughed. Maya, no one will believe you. He walked out. The door swung shut behind him. I sat there in the glass booth, alone with my black coffee and my quiet certainty. He thought proof didn't matter if the right people didn't want to see it. He thought he had won. But I had his admission. I had his logs. I had his money trail. And I had the one thing Daniel Brooks didn't know how to build, a real relationship with a client who trusted me. Vertex Industries had called me that morning. They'd heard about the mess and wanted to know the truth. I told them I'd have it by Friday. I had an invitation to the board meeting. They wanted me there as their consultant. He thought no one would believe me. He didn't know they already did. Friday morning, 10 o'clock. The boardroom at Nexitech had floor-to-ceiling glass walls, just like the meeting room where Daniel had destroyed me 4 days earlier. I walked in wearing a gray blazer I'd bought with money from my savings account. $40,000, saved over 5 years. I'd used some of it to start Chen Analytics. Right now, I was using my presence as the thing that would end Daniel Brooks. The board sat along one long table. Mr. Thompson was at the head, reading from a tablet. Daniel sat 3 seats down, files spread out, looking like a man who owned the room. He didn't see me at first. Then he did. His smile faltered. Just for a second, then it came back, brighter than before. I sat in the chair reserved for the Vertex Industries consultant. I didn't say a word. Daniel stood first. I'd like to present the quarterly data report, he said. We've made significant progress on the Vertex account, and I want to highlight the work my team has done. He clicked his remote, the screen lit with charts and graphs. I recognized every single one. They were mine. My models, my projections, my spreadsheets. He had renamed them under his own name, but I knew my work, like I knew my own handwriting. He was presenting my quarter as his own. Mr. Thompson nodded along. The other board members took notes. Daniel was halfway through when I raised my hand. Thompson looked up. Yes, Ms. Chen. I'd like to add something, I said, if I may. Daniel's jaw tightened. This is a board presentation, he said, not a Q&A. Then consider this a correction, I said, because the quarterly numbers you're about to finish are incomplete. And the man presenting them has a serious conflict of interest. I opened my laptop. I connected to the screen before anyone could stop me. Daniel's face went pale. On the display, I brought up the access logs from Friday night, March 13th. I zoomed in on the timestamp, 11:12 p.m. The user ID was dbrooks42, Daniel Brooks. My account, I said, had not been touched that night. I had been home, asleep. I clicked to the next document. Internal emails sent between Daniel's company address and a man named Marcus Webb at Computex Solutions. I read one line aloud. Our shared interest requires mutual benefit. The room went quiet. The board members looked at me. Then they looked at Daniel. I received these documents, I said, from someone who believed the truth mattered more than their job security. I clicked again. A bank statement appeared. A wire transfer from Webb Holdings to Daniel Brooks. Certified personal account dated Saturday, March 14th. $250,000. You don't need to be a forensic accountant to understand a payment that size, I said. Not for any legitimate reason. Daniel stood up. This is fabricated, he said. She's trying to frame me, same as the leak. She's bitter. She was fired. She's looking for revenge. I wasn't fired, I said. I was suspended. And I didn't fabricate anything. I also didn't work on this quarter alone. But I noticed something odd. I clicked to a folder tree. Over the last 3 weeks, 6 of my projects were moved into Daniel's directory, under his name, with timestamps showing the files were last edited after midnight. Mr. Thompson set down his tablet. He looked at me. Then he looked at Daniel, and for the first time, I saw his face harden. At the coffee shop on Thursday, I said, Daniel offered to make my suspension go away if I resigned. When I refused, he admitted to leaking the Vertex file and told me that if I came to the board, no one would believe me. Daniel laughed, a nervous little laugh. That's absurd. Do you have a recording? No, I said. It was the truth. I didn't need one. Because you can't record what you heard. He stared at me, waiting for something, a recording, a confession, something he could challenge. The evidence I have is better, I said. The logs don't lie. The bank doesn't lie. The emails don't lie. They all point to you. Mr. Thompson picked up the printed bank statement I'd left on the table. He read the name on the account. He read the amount. He looked at Daniel. Is this yours? Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it, then said, I can explain. No, Mr. Thompson said, you can't. He pressed a button on his phone. Security to the boardroom. Daniel's hands started shaking. He tried to gather his files, but his fingers slipped and papers scattered across the floor. Security arrived in under a minute. They escorted him out. He didn't look at me. He couldn't. Thompson waited until the door closed. Then he stood up. He walked over to me. Ms. Chen, he said, you were wronged. This was handled poorly. I'm sorry. On behalf of the entire board, I apologize publicly and completely. I nodded. Warmth spread through my chest, but I kept my face calm. Being right mattered more than being loud. The board voted to terminate Daniel's employment that same morning. He cleaned out his desk under escort, and by noon, the competitor's deal evaporating became a quiet industry rumor, then a quiet industry fact. Daniel Brooks was blacklisted. As security walked Daniel down the hall, I stood by the boardroom window and watched. He didn't look back. I knew then that this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. My phone buzzed. The contract for Chen Analytics, $500,000 a year, sitting in my inbox waiting for my signature. I signed the contract that Monday at 9 in the morning. Not in the Nexatech boardroom with lawyers hovering. I signed it in my apartment, at my kitchen table, with my laptop open and my succulent on the windowsill catching the light. $500,000 a year. Chen Analytics was no longer a dream. It was a business. The email confirming the counter signature came through at 9,014. I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop, made a pot of coffee, and sat in the quiet of my apartment for a long moment. 4 days earlier, I had been escorted out of that building like a criminal. Now they were paying me $500,000 to come back as a partner. The world had a strange sense of humor. The phone started buzzing around 10. Sarah was first. "Oh my God," she said. "I watched the whole thing from the second-floor break room. He didn't even get to finish his slide deck." "I know," I said. "I was there." "Everyone's talking about it. Rachel said the security logs show his credentials were used to delete his own files before he left. He tried to cover his tracks on the way out. I hadn't heard that. It didn't surprise me. Daniel had always been tidy about his messes." I met Rachel for lunch that Tuesday at the same coffee place on Congress. She ordered a cold brew and sat across from me with a wide smile. "Your new office is nicer than mine," she said. "I don't have an office yet." "You will. I saw the floor plans. Corner space. Windows on 2 sides." I later learned Rachel had been called into Mr. Thompson's office twice that week. The CEO wanted to know how I had accessed those logs. Rachel told him the truth. She had pulled them from her workstation, which was against company policy. Mr. Thompson listened, nodded, and promoted her to senior security specialist 2 weeks later. She told me the promotion came with a raise and a new title. She deserved both. The industry blacklist was faster than I expected. By Wednesday, 3 separate recruiters had called me asking if I knew Daniel Brooks. 2 of them mentioned his name with a certain tone. The third used the word unhireable. I didn't repeat that word to anyone. I didn't have to. It was already making its way through the Dallas and Austin networks like water through cracks. Marcus Webb at Computech Solutions pulled his offer the same week. I knew this because a former colleague from Computech reached out to congratulate me on the board meeting and casually mentioned that Webb Holdings had severed all ties with Daniel. The wire transfer for $250,000 had been initiated on Saturday, March 14th. It was reversed on Tuesday, March 23rd. Genuine. The whole thing was genuinely clean. I met with Vertex Industries the following Thursday to finalize their consulting agreement. Lisa Harmon, the client contact who had believed me from the start, shook my hand across a conference table in her downtown office. "We wanted the person who understood our data," she said. "Not the person who stole it." I appreciated that. She had taken a risk by inviting a suspended analyst to a board meeting. Her trust had paid off. So had mine. By Friday, my new office was ready. Chen Analytics, 1,000 square feet, 2 windows, 1 door with my name on it. I bought a new desk, a comfortable chair, and a plant for the corner. I kept my old succulent at home. That plant had survived 5 years in a cubicle. It deserved a window with a view. 3 weeks later, my former team started reaching out. One by one. Some asked for references. Others asked if I was hiring. I gave references to those who deserved them. I offered interviews to a few who had earned it. Sarah joined me in July. Rachel followed in September. I paid them what they were worth. That was a change from their old employer, though they were too polite to say so. I had built something of my own, and I knew it was only the beginning. The night before I signed my first solo client, I sat at my kitchen table with a stack of paper in front of me. Not contracts, not proposals, evidence, copies of it anyway. The logs, the emails, the bank statement with the wire transfer. I kept them in a folder now, labeled Tax Records. It felt fitting. I didn't open it that night. I just looked at the cover. Because I knew what was inside and I knew what it had cost me to put it there. 5 years at Nexatech, a team I had trained. A cubicle with a succulent on the windowsill. None of it had been light, but none of it had broken me either. It taught me something instead. Truth is a quiet thing. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It just sits there, waiting for someone to look at it carefully enough. And when they do, it holds up. That is something Daniel never understood. He thought the loudest story wins. He thought if he said it enough times, everyone would believe it. But evidence does not care about charisma. It does not care about confidence. It only cares about being real. I started my own firm in that kitchen, Chen Analytics. I used $40,000 in savings. I had watched every dollar of mine double and triple check itself for years, so I knew exactly what I could afford. A laptop, a scanner, a phone plan, a small office with 1,000 square feet, 2 windows, and a door I owned. I bought a new desk and a comfortable chair. I bought a plant for the corner. My old succulent stayed at home. It had survived 5 years in a cubicle. It deserved a window with a view. 3 weeks later, my former team started reaching out. One by one. Some asked for references. Some asked if I was hiring. I gave references to those who deserved them. I offered interviews to a few who had earned it. Sarah joined me in July. Rachel followed in September. I paid them what they were worth. That was a change from their old employer, though I knew they thought it quietly. They told me so at lunch, one Tuesday, over sandwiches. Rachel looked at me across the table. She had taken a bite out of her turkey wrap, and she chewed slowly before she said it. "You know what the weirdest part is?" she asked. "I finally got promoted, senior security specialist. The raise came with it." I nodded. "You earned that." "I did," she said, "but I got it for telling the truth. Not for covering it up." She paused. "The security team is still talking about what you did." I didn't say anything. I just drank my coffee. Because the truth of it was already sitting between us. I had been accused. I had been suspended. I had been humiliated in front of the entire data analytics floor. And in the end, I had not screamed or begged. I had gathered paper and numbers and timestamps. I had let them speak, and they had spoken louder than any accusation Daniel could have manufactured. I still think about the offer he made me that Thursday. 5 o'clock at the coffee place on Congress. He sat in the glass-walled corner booth, and he told me my suspension would go away if I resigned. He even smiled when he said it. I think about what would have happened if I had signed his resignation letter. My career would have ended silently. Daniel would have presented my work as his own. And the board would have applauded him for it. But I had email records. I had a bank statement with $250,000 moving from Webb Holdings into his account. I had his folder structure with 6 of my projects sitting under his name, backdated to January. None of it was a feeling. None of it was a hunch. It was paper. It was numbers, and it held. Mr. Thompson stood up at the end of the board meeting after I had connected my laptop to the screen and walked everyone through it line by line. He told the room that Daniel's employment was terminated immediately. He told me, in front of everyone, that the board regretted the way I had been treated. I did not ask for that. I only asked for one thing. I asked for the truth to be on the record. It was. The boardroom had floor-to-ceiling glass walls. I remember standing there in my gray blazer, looking out at the Austin skyline, thinking about how small I had felt 4 days earlier, walking out of that building. But the building was not what defined me. Neither was Daniel. Neither was the accusation. What defined me was the folder I carried. And what was in it? I would say the past few months have been easy. Quote. That would be a lie. Building Chen Analytics took late nights and early mornings. Some clients were slow to trust a new firm, but some were slow to trust a woman who had been accused of something she did not do. I told only one of them the full story, the one I had to tell, the one at Vertex Industries. The accountant I am now called me, Lisa Harmon, and she asked if I wanted to open a board meeting with her. I said no. It was enough for me that they listened to the work. I know Daniel is still out there somewhere. I learned later that the wire transfer was reversed. I learned that Computech pulled his offer. I learned that by Wednesday of that week, 3 recruiters had called about him, not to hire him, but to warn me that they would not. The industry moves fast when trust breaks. Daniel burned his own bridges. I just held the match. I did not light the boards. He did. Now I sit in my office with a view of my own. Sarah works 2 doors down. Rachel works across the hall. They both tell me I should take Fridays off. I tell them I will once the month closes. The truth is, I love this. I love building things with people who tell the truth. I love watching a team grow around a culture of receipts and honesty. It is a different kind of loyalty. It is one I built myself. I decided last week I would mentor other people who had been through what I had been through. Young analysts mostly, people who had watched a manager take credit for their work, people who had been pushed aside because they were good and someone else was good at looking good. I am not a lawyer. I am not a therapist, but I am proof, and sometimes proof is enough. I have a new plant in the office corner. It is a sansevieria. It thrives on neglect. I teach it no lessons. It just does its job. I move the folders on my desk into a neat stack. The thick one with the evidence stays in my drawer. I do not look at it anymore, but I do not throw it away either. I learned something important that spring. It costs you nothing to be honest, but being dishonest can cost you everything. And when the dust settles and the boardroom empties and the phone stops ringing, what you are left with is your name. I kept mine clean. That was the only victory I ever needed. Accounting is not about confidence. It is not about charm. It is about what you can prove. And the only person who needed to hear that was me. I heard it, I believed it, and I acted on it. I signed my first contract as a founder on a Monday morning. 9 o'clock, at my kitchen table. The counter-signature email came at 9:14. I sat there for a long minute with my coffee going cold, staring at the screen. Then I put the folder with the evidence back in the drawer. And I started working on Tuesday. Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, please like this video and subscribe for more true stories and corporate justice.